What do Elon Musk and Ozzy Osbourne have in common? Putin can't fool European Union any longer. Poland has just got stronger and deadlier. Polish farmers are protesting loud. Russian diplomats in New York are talking riddles. Ecuadorian bananas aren't deadly for Russians any longer. Or are they? Or they aren't. And the biggest news of the week, the friends and the associates of Alexei Navalny, the hero of Russia and the martyr, are targeted by the KGB now for elimination. Welcome to another World's News as seen from Russia update. Howdy friends, my name is Konstantin, and welcome to Inside Russia, where usual Russia is explained by the unusual Russian, me. Every Wednesday I give you Russian take on important news, and let's jump straight to the news number one. And it comes from the European Union. Europe is getting enough of those who help to circumvent the sanctions that the international community has placed upon Russia. The European Parliament has approved a directive on making criminal offense, circumventing the European Union sanctions placed upon Russia. Russian invasion still benefits hugely from the criminals violating European laws, circumventing the sanctions. This must be over, declared the European Union Parliament. Now, in addition to intentional violations, for example, non-compliance with a ban on arms shipment or doing business with sanctioned enterprises in Russia, the law also criminalizes violations related to negligence. The trade in dual-use goods, for example. When the directive is approved, the punishment will include imprisonment up to 5 years and hefty fines. Many people ask me a simple question. Do you think that the sanctions work? I hear it all the time. They do. Perhaps slower than many would want. Perhaps they weren't as effective at first, but they are working. Moreover, they work better and better. And their effect is long-term and cumulative. I have a pretty strong feeling that it's just the beginning. So get your popcorn ready. You are about to start watching the most dramatic, long-running show that you have ever seen, the demise of Russia. And the next news comes from Poland. And Poland has just gotten stronger. The United States of America will send Poland a batch of missiles capable of hitting targets in Russia. This was recently stated by the former commander of the Polish Armed Forces, General Miroslav Puzański. I hope I pronounce his name right. But that's not it. Earlier this year, the U.S. State Department announced plans to sell $3.7 billion worth of missiles to Poland. I also asked quite a few times if I thought that Russia wouldn't stop at Ukraine and would roll further westwards. Well, I know one thing for sure now. For Russia, it's become much more difficult to do that now. With Poland is so much deadlier. Russian propaganda? Well, it's conveniently keeping silent about it. You see, they always do that when they smell that others possess raw powers and mean business. Always silent. The next news, another news, also comes from Poland. Well, this news is more of a question, my question to the Polish folks over here watching me right now. Polish farmers are angry over the European Union climate policies and food imports from Ukraine. That they say that these things threaten their livelihood. The farmers have been blocking border crossings with Ukraine since last month to protest against what they say is unfair competition from goods entering from Ukraine. Ukraine has sent its agriculture sector products to European countries through Poland. And Ukraine has seen its agriculture sector crippled by Russia's invasion in 2022. Many of its major export routes through the Black Sea have been blocked by Russia's naval ships, and its farmland rendered unusable by warfare on large territory. And simply, Russia now occupies 20% of Ukrainian territories. In a bid to help Kyiv economically, the European Union countries in 2022 scrapped tariffs on Ukrainian goods transiting the 27 countries of the European Union by roads. And the Polish farmers consider that as threat to their livelihood. They are protesting all over the country. They're blocking the border crossings. They are loud, and the reports are coming, whether I don't know whether true or not, that at times they become violent. You know, I like Polish farmers. I like free people that are standing tall and making themselves heard. I wish that Russian farmers were like Polish. I wish they were angry and active and loud. That's a little off topic. What I'd love to ask the Polish here is their opinion of the farmers protesting. I'd love to learn more about that. Please share your opinions in the comments. Thank you. This is really important. I'd like to know what's going on from people who live in Poland, not from the news, from propaganda, and so forth. So thank you so very much. The next news comes from the United Nations. You're gonna love that. Okay. Straight from the Big Apple, New York. If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. New York, New York. Please forgive me for that. I couldn't resist. Well, I personally, by the way, I love New York. It's a city of powerful, mighty. Well, the news actually comes from a Russian diplomat in the United Nations that is located in New York. I quote the statement made by Dmitry Polyansky, First Deputy Permanent Representative of Russia to the United Nations. Made by Dmitry... The United Nations... Well, listen to this very careful, folks, and try to understand. Now, please, try to understand, try to use common sense and logic, all right? This is the statement. The United States remains isolated in the UN Security Council and tries to block all initiatives of other members of this body. In fact, Washington is isolated in the Security Council, although its closest allies, of course, are trying to every possible way to hide this situation. What? I tried to understand his statement, to apply logic and common sense myself. Who is the USA isolated from? Its allies? Well, the United States is a part and the leader of the G7 group. Can't be isolated from the big boys club. Isolated from the rest of the world? Not really. The United States is kind of calling the shots in the world, at least in a large part of it. Isolated from Russia? Not really. It keeps opposing Russia. So who is the USA isolated from in the Security Council? And I'll remind you, not too many countries in the Security Council. So I was thinking, I gave it a good thought, and I had an insight. I was simply approaching Polyansky's riddle, and that is a riddle, there's no question, at the wrong angle. You see, we got to look at this from a completely different position. It is that time of the year, spring, and many people get extra agitated twice a year, and during spring and during fall. Crazy ideas start getting into their heads. for example, the USA is isolated despite the help of its allies, etc. And they all of a sudden start writing messages at their Telegram accounts. Perhaps, I'm not sure about that, just that's my wild guess. Mr. Polyansky, being a good Russian, perhaps he loves a certain drink. And one thing after another, the grand ideas multiplied by certain see-through liquid consumed, oh, water, of course. Russians drink water. What did you think? What do you think I meant? So that leads to complete isolation of the USA in the UN Council, Security Council in their heads. I saw a book on sale recently. It's called How to Become the Supreme Leader of the Universe Without Attracting Too Much Attention from the Psychiatrists. Wonder if Russian diplomats had anything to do with authoring that book. Whew. Folks, I would like to ask you a couple things. Number one, please hit the like button now. Number two, please subscribe so you won't miss any updates. Number three, please share this in your social media accounts. Reddit, that would be absolutely fantastic if you could. And number four, most important, please comment. I'd love to hear your feedback. If you have nothing to say, please drop me a couple lines of encouragement. I'd love to hear from you, and I love reading through encouragement like that. Let's jump to the next news, and it came straight from Mr. Tesla car himself, Elon Musk. According to Musk, Ukraine's offensive operation have brought nothing and only weakened it, meaning Ukraine. The Ukrainian counteroffensive was negatively assessed by him. I quote, "About a year ago, I wrote that Ukraine would not waste lives of its people on an attack against firmly entrenched Russian positions, but should strengthen its positions," he said. I end quote. Musk stressed that instead, people's lives were still spent in useless operations. According to Elon Musk, a logical step at the moment would be to strengthen its positions away from the current front line. Well, I knew that Elon Musk was a genius inventor, okay? Businessman, innovator, and investor. But I never knew that he was a military expert. And I remember a long time ago, an amusing situation happened in Boston. I think it was back in year 2000. Ozzy Osbourne, the founder member and the lead singer of Black Sabbath, came to visit Boston. Now then, Ozzy was at his peak of popularity, but not because of him being a music star, but a TV star. A TV show called Living with the Osbournes was playing on TV, and everyone, literally everyone in America watched it. And Ozzy became one of the most famous people in the country because of that. So he was walking on the Faneuil Hall, at the Faneuil Hall, and a young fella came to him and recognized him and greeted him. Said, "Ozzy, you're in Boston. That's fantastic. But what are you doing here?" Absolute shock and amazement, and asked, "Ozzy, you do that too?" And now I am amazed as much as that guy. And I am asking, Elon, are you a military expert too now? You do that too? I'd never thought I'd hear that from Elon Musk, among others. If at this point, friends, if you're wondering, asking yourself, how I can help this channel, that's easy. You can buy me a tea or coffee at buymeacoffee.com. or become channel's patron at patreon.com. That's pretty interesting idea now, because I'll tell you at the end of the stream. So I'm going to put links down below. Either way is fantastic and much, much appreciated. Thank you very much. The next quick news comes from Ecuador. Have you ever had Ecuadorian bananas. I have. I think that's the only bananas. I only had Ecuadorian bananas. That's it. So why bananas? Why have they made to the news? Why are they important? Because in January, Ecuador decided to transfer old Soviet and Russian-made military equipment that it acquired from good old USSR way back in the days and later from Russia. And it decided to have it exchanged for some new military stuff, equipment, arms from the United States, to the United States. You see, it must have paid the USSR and Russia with bananas, must have exchanged that arms for the bananas. But that decided, sometime later, decided to transfer it to the United States and get $200 million worth of new stuff, American stuff. And it was assumed that Washington would supply a part of the received equipment to Ukraine. Moscow immediately warned that it would regard this as a very unfriendly step. And less than a month later, in February, Rossельхознадзор, that's a government's body, agency that oversees safety of agricultural products, announced restrictions on the imports of bananas from Ecuador. Of course, it had nothing to do with the potential arms supply to Ukraine. Oh no! Russian health authorities found a nasty Ecuadorian fly in the Ecuadorian bananas. A tiny little fly that threatened to destroy entire Russia, its economy, and its sovereignty. You name it, especially in the midst of Russian winter. You see nasty Ecuadorian banana flies. They just love Russian winters and their sub-zero temperatures. And after Russia stopped importing bananas from Ecuador, well, Ecuador started hurting financially, and it changed its mind and decided not to supply arms to the USA. And guess what? Yesterday, it became known that Russia had allowed 5 companies from Ecuador to supply bananas to Russia again. And when they were asked about those nasty little Ecuadorian flies that threatened to destroy Russia and its people completely, wipe them off, Rossельхознадзор answered, "What flies? Are you crazy? What does it have to do with the flies?" You see, it's not us who are crazy. Rossельхознадзор, it's you. You use simple economic relations as geopolitical tools. That's why you are in such trouble. That's why your government has simply destroyed its natural gas trade. And sooner or later, it'll backfire to Russia. The last news, it's very disturbing, very sad. And it kind of shows you, once again, what Russia is capable of, Russian politicians and Russian KGB is capable of. Before I jump to the news, I'd like to invite you to become patrons, if you haven't done so, for one simple reason. I'm trying to do something new at Patreon. You see, there are so many news in Russia, just like news, what I've prepared for you today, only in Russia, not in international news. And I simply don't have enough time to cover them, make videos on YouTube. What I can do, though, I can pick 9 news, and that's what I started doing. I picked 9 best, most interesting news that happen in Russia every day. And I divide them into 3 blocks of 3 news each, and I post them on Patreon for patrons to see. So please come and join my Patreon, and you will have access to the news as well. Let's do an experiment for a month or so, and we'll see how it goes. And let me jump to the latest news, the last news of the stream, last but not least. It is very disturbing, pretty sad, and you must have heard of it. In my personal rating, this is of importance. This is news number one, because it is that important. The chief of staff for the late Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny, Leonid Volkov, was attacked outside his home in Lithuania, where he lives in exile. Upon returning home last night, Volkov was approached by strangers who broke a window of his car and started pounding him with a hammer. A total of 15 hits reached Volkov, but he managed to defend himself, to escape by using the door of his car as a weapon, as a shield. He was left with a broken arm and wounds all over his body. The attackers clearly tried to kill Volkov by hammering him to death. Reminds me of another case happened some 80 years ago. Leon Trotsky. Does that name ring a bell? He was killed by an ice axe in Mexico by a KGB agent working undercover. Well, it is not 1940 any longer, and the current KGB agents, they've become less competent, what it seems like. They use hammers instead of axes, and they run away scared when their targets strike back, try to defend themselves. But they're still competent enough to infiltrate Lithuania and live and spy there and break the law there undercover. And I'll remind you, Lithuania is a part of the European Union and NATO. So the KGB signature is still the same, though. The dictator hates someone, and that someone dies in a violent death. Older me would say, oh, it's so low, it's so inhuman. Current me is not even shocked. Current me expects it from the Russians now. Back to Volkov. I'd say back to the associates of Navalny. Not only they murdered Navalny, they want to eradicate all memories of him from us. They want to kill all his colleagues, employees, and friends and associates. And not only they want to kill them, they've started attempting. And the first attempt happened in Lithuania yesterday. Yulia, Kira, Olga, Lyubov, Ruslan, Konstantin, Leonid, you are targets now. Friends, please be extra careful now. They won't be able to accomplish their goal. They won't be able to make us forget. Alexei gave us hope. He showed us the way. They won't erase him because he is in our memories, and what's most important, he is in our hearts. Friends, that's it for the world's news update today. I suggest now you check out Patreon and see for yourself what I meant in the news, and you can go and check out another video I made documenting how we live in Uzbekistan after leaving Russia forever. The video is called After Russia.